Attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, hello and welcome to the Canadian Bro Show. And oh my God, you guys are in luck for a really special episode. All our episodes are special, but this particular one is extra special. And before I go any further, I just want to say that our fans have been just, relentless on, they're loving what we're doing. And we're not really sure what we're doing, but they love it.
Thank you so much,
So,
everyone.
what's that?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, commenting.
Thank you, everybody. From Pauly and Johnny. My name is Paul Bale. I'm a founder and host of the Canadian Bro Show. This is the first iteration of the Canadian Bro Show. This will be our 25th episode, which is quite remarkable since May. And I'm very excited to be here. I'm only here for the most part because of my co-hosts. And one of my co-hosts is the talented and remarkable, just resilient chap that is totally unique and special in every single possible way. He wears a complete Canadian outfit for every episode. Red shoes, red pants, red thong. I'm not really sure if he's wearing anything else red under that shirt. It's not red today. But the toque, and I told him on the first episode, I said, look, if you could just wash the toque, that would be great. No, I'm joking. But the first time I saw it, it was like, is that toque 27 years old? Because it was dodgy. The wonderful and talented Mr. John Leister, the co-host of the Canadian Bro Show.
Thank you so much. How are you, my friend?
I'm pretty good, man. It's just really nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
I mean, we got fans. We're doing a live show here. I've got a 25 square foot office. There's nobody here. My wife's outside, probably reading a book, saying, "Could you please calm down and be quiet so I can finish my book?" Where Johnny's in the Vancouver Library. I'm actually with Johnny for once. Or we were in the beginning, but I'm heading back to Kelowna. I think maybe tomorrow or Tuesday. I don't know, but probably tomorrow. And in Vancouver at my condo. I'm 2 blocks away from Johnny right now. So nice to see you, bro. Yeah, I'm a condo in the sky. We're on the 15th floor, and I've got my studio. This studio here in Vancouver is 25 square feet. And as you can see, I'm shamelessly promoting my real estate brokerage. Hopefully they'll appreciate it, Orca Realty. And also my basketball infatuation. I am a hoop junkie. And I am a dedicated hoop junkie. I have been all my life. But in the meantime, today is episode 25. We're going to have some fun with this because, we always, Johnny and I were always like brainstorming about how to talk about Canadian topics, and believe it or not, there's a lot of topics that we can talk about that are relevant to Canada because it's the second largest country in the world. One of our past episodes that we've done. And today the focus, Johnny, is going to be episode 25, and it's the WETCOAST Winter Wonderland. Episode 25.
Also known as the Wet Coast. Because it's about 10 months a year here. We don't have...
Yeah, and we should probably explain that because, Canada is not only second largest country in the world, but it's, for the most part, you go east of the Okanagan Valley, and it gets extremely cold and very snowy and everything else all the way to the Maritimes. However,
get a lot of snow in Vancouver. It snows maybe a few days a year. Right?
Well, I mean, if at all. Some years we don't get any. No, and it's mild so far, which is great because I'm going to be heading up on the Coquihalla tomorrow, and my wicked little Ford Escape hybrid with kick-ass brand new BF Goodrich tires, and my just ready to handle what the Coquihalla can pump out, and I just want to get home safe. That's all, my home away from home. But Johnny, tell me, in Vancouver, We did an episode last week. We're going to do an episode next week with. I don't want to go away with what we're talking about here, but our next episode is going to be with an old friend of mine that is one of the best restaurateurs. Period. Sommelier, you name it. Mr. Richard Goodine from the Goodine Group, who I have worked with many, many decades ago. You'll notice a theme with the Canadian Bro Show. I have a lot of people that I know in Vancouver. I have a lot of people I know that I've worked with. I was in the hospitality industry for 28 years. One of my iterations of career choices. And right now, the most important part is, Johnny, what is going on in your world, my friend?
Well, plug. Yesterday, I uploaded yet another Lee Hacklin mystery, and this one is called Higher Burning.
Before you start, can you please tell everyone about
Sure.
your Lee Hacklin journey?
My boy Lee is a private investigator. He's in his, I want to say, late 20s, early 30s, very handsome, ridiculously brave, and charismatic and cocky, and very wisecracking, very much an idealized version of myself. And I have over 100 of these short stories, mostly short stories online now. And the one I uploaded yesterday was about the murder of a conservative university professor. And I'm real happy with the way it turned out. And I finished another one today called Irish Capades, which deals a little bit with the troubles between England and the IRA back in the 1970s.
The
So
Troubles,
it
as it
was
was called.
capital T, right?
Yeah.
Acts of terrorism for the cause of a united Ireland. So that's my week, pretty routine. Other than
So,
that,
Johnny, if you don't mind, just a little bit more information for the folks,
well,
because
sure.
I've read your work and it's very talented. I love it. But what is this character like? What is the focus of Lee Hacklin? What is this guy doing?
He's just a quintessential heroic guy. I mean, he hates bullies. He likes to stick up for people who can't stick up for themselves. Sometimes he works for free. He prefers to get paid, but if he feels that the cause is just,
Don't we all?
yeah, he'll take on a cause for free, and he always does the right thing, regardless of what the consequences might be. I mean, he's just everything that I admire about a human being. But he's also flawed. He's very sensitive. He's very vulnerable to criticism, as I think we all are a little bit. And he wants everybody to love him. He's not a Wolverine type of hero or Dirty Harry type of hero. He's very gregarious and open with people. Like he talks about his personal life. He likes to share. He likes to go to bars, and he likes the ladies. He's a complicated man. Nobody understands about his woman, and he has not really.
And he's flawed.
Of course he is, and again, he's just everything that I admire about a human being. He's someone who tries to be good and accepts his shortcomings, but focuses on more on the good qualities of himself, and he tries to see the good in others. But when he sees someone behaving abominably, he'll step up to the plate and do whatever needs to be done in order for a right to be avenged. So this is my bliss. This is something that I was always meant to do with my life. I didn't start until 2019, and I'm just off and running. Every time I open my notebook, I mean, the words just spill out of me. And I don't claim to be good at it. I just know that I can do it. And every time I write, I make myself laugh. Sometimes I make myself cry. I always have that feeling of discovery, like the one I just finished. Like when I discovered who the actual killer was, it's just tremendously satisfying. And I don't want to be vulgar, but it's almost like having a word that starts with an O and ends with an M. That's how
Dude,
when I write.
let me be vulgar on this show, please, because I swear like a rock star.
A drunken sailor, one might say.
Well, I thank God I don't drink like I used to, and I've
Well,
never been a sailor. Hi, sailor. Yeah, I've never been a sailor, but Johnny and I were talking about like, look, Christmas is done, the holidays is done, and by the way, it sounds all of that description of Lee Hacklin kind of sounds like you, my friend.
Well, there's a little bit of everybody in his character, but he's basically a super nice, sweet guy. But he's got a very ruthless, badass streak. Like he'll kill someone and he doesn't wring his hands after the fact. It's like, well, I didn't kill you for my pleasure. I killed you because if I didn't kill you, you would kill other people because that's what you like doing.
Yeah,
He's like Dirty Harry in that sense.
Yeah, except you don't have a gun. and he does.
No, he does. He's loaded for bear. He has his Browning tucked into his shoulder holster, practically sleeps with it, and he has what I call it, his Ain't It Great 38 Special strapped to his
Yeah.
ankle for backup.
Of course. I'd have a PPK with a because there's more capacity. You get
Yeah,
more than 6 shots. But and in
crazy
your
and fun.
job, if you he's been in the security industry for 35 plus years.
Mm.
If you have to be physical with something, do you use kung fu like Bruce Lee?
It's funny. I can't think of a single time where I've really had to apply a quote unquote martial arts technique on someone. Probably the closest I ever came was when I was working at another library one day, and two guys got into a fist fight. And when I look back on this, I can't believe I actually did this. I jumped in between them and pushed them apart. And one of them, was wearing a trench coat, and he had a hammer. He pulled a hammer out of his trench coat as if to strike me with it. And I just put up my hands, and fortunately, he left. But in terms of that kind of action, that's probably the closest I've come to anything really
Yeah.
physical. I always, anytime I'm dealing with someone who's difficult, which is
Mhm.
almost, I want to say, once a day where I work, I introduce myself, I smile. It's like, hey, you can do that. You can smoke your pipe or whatever it is for, let's say, 5 minutes, and then you have to go. I always cut them a little bit of slack.
Yeah,
I
of
always
course.
tell my coworkers, whatever you do, don't reach behind your back. They might think that you're reaching for a weapon. Treat them like they're your best friend. Treat
Yeah,
them like your family. Because what we want is their compliance at the end of the day, and we
yeah.
want everyone to feel safe.
No, and you want to in real estate there's a course called conflict resolution.
Mm,
I in 21 years have taken the course 3 different times just as a gentle reminder that in you just have to learn how to be like Switzerland,
yeah, exactly.
smarter, calmer,
Listen,
richer,
yeah.
and that's not always the case. And sometimes you need to be reminded. But getting back to the show today, John, if you don't mind,
Mm,
unless you want to ask me about my week, which is really not that interesting. I spent some all day with the wifey, and we had a good day. And I just got back from Vancouver Island with a bunch of friends that, by the way, Eddie Romagnoli and Dan both say hi.
oh, good. Childhood friend.
And
It's nice
yeah,
to see Eddie again after so many
yeah,
years.
they
He's
remember
great.
you well, and you remember Johnny, and they were neighbors at Belfour Rentals where I lived for couple of years, unfortunately too short. But today's show is, you know, the Wet Coast,
Mm.
Winter Wonderland, and its activities. A lot of people don't know about Canada. Have never been here, and you need to come. If you come, Johnny and I want to be we want to be able to suggest all the things that you can do in
We'll take you
Vancouver
on a
that
tour.
yeah, we all take for granted. I've done everything on this list myself multiple times,
Mm.
and reflecting on all of the list that I have, I don't know about yours, is actually quite remarkable. People say, "Oh, Vancouver's boring and blah blah blah." Listen,
No fun city.
it does right. It doesn't need to be boring. There are lots of things to do, and Johnny and I are going to go through some of our favorite things. John, I believe you let me go first last time.
Okay.
Would you like to? What are the
Sure.
fun things to do
Okay.
in the Wet Coast, Winter Wonderland, and New Year of Vancouver? What is the first one you'd like to share
Okay.
with us today?
At the top of my list, Pauly, I'm going to start with theater sports. Now, this
Mm,
is something that me and many of our mutual friends
yep,
used to do back in the day. I
yep.
remember when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, or sorry, I want to say late teens, early 20s when I was taking acting. I was really into live theater. And me and Jeff and some of our other friends, Kennedy and Jeff's girlfriend, Carol, we went to the Arts Club Theater on Thurlow Street in downtown Vancouver every Friday night at about 11 o'clock, I want to say. And a lot of those actors who perform in theater sports, it's basically two teams of actors and the improv and the based on audience suggestions, and then whoever gets the most laughs wins. And of course, this is the progenitor of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Well, I actually got to see some of these actors live, like Colin Mockery and Ryan Stiles, and trying to think of a couple more names. But basically, those two became pretty hot after Whose Line Is It Anyway? I got to see them back in the 1980s, of all things. I went
Nice.
online yesterday, and I was very pleased to see that theater sports is still a thing. It's called the Improv Center on Granville Island. So, I mean, that's something that I think a lot of Vancouverites would like
At
to
the
do.
Arts Club in Granville Island, it's great,
It's,
great venue.
yeah, it's called the Improv Center now, according
Yeah,
to
well, it's changed
what I
its
saw
name.
online.
It's same
Yeah.
same place. Has been there for 40 years.
Yeah. Did you ever go to theater sports? Did you ever watch that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it especially if you get the SCTV guys that are on tour and they, the two guys you mentioned, they show up. These guys are talented. They're very good at what they do, and it can be a lot of fun. And if I ever did it, it was because of friends or guests to showcase, exactly what this show is about, to showcase what you can do in Vancouver and all the options that you have, right?
Right.
So, well, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Um, I've got so many. For me, it always goes back to being an athlete and an outdoors guy. I always want to talk about, the most popular, not just for me, but for tourists. And since this episode is about people perhaps have been to Vancouver, really enjoyed it, but didn't get the time to enjoy all the things that we're going to bring up today. So this is going to be just sort of a gentle reminder of all the things that you can do, and we'll try to make it concise and informative. And you'll be shocked at how many great things there are to do in this incredible city, top 10 city in the world, in my opinion. And one of my favorites when I certainly was younger is, especially in the winter season, as it is now, as the holidays have finished and New Year's upon us, the first week, is to visit the Capilano Suspension Bridge.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh boy, that
Oh,
is. I went
dude,
there. That is
dude,
heart stopping.
it is fantastic.
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and so the favorite thing to do in Vancouver in the wintertime is to visit the Capilano Suspension Bridge. The winter light show transforms this iconic landmark into a whole new magical world, and it really is. They do a fantastic job. It's somewhat pricey, but it's worth every penny, because I'll explain to you. Plus, this activity includes a free shuttle from downtown Vancouver, which a lot of people will really be happy about. They don't have to worry about driving,
Right.
going over the Lionsgate Bridge to get there. There's only two bridges to go from Vancouver to the North Shore,
It's free too.
and it's free. Well, it's not free. That's what they like to tell you, but I'll
Okay.
explain to you. And it's got over, well, 1,500 different reviews, 5-star reviews, and this tip is it's popular. Reserve your spot, and essentially they pick you up downtown and they take you to the Capilano Suspension Bridge. So if you're at a beer garden and you're having a couple of pops and you don't want to drive, well, you don't have to worry about it. Or if you're not into pops but you'd like to get adjusted before seeing all those lights, as in Vancouver, there's a lot of people that enjoy lots of crazy and fun things.
Mm.
To enhance that experience, you don't have to worry about driving. It takes you right there. The light show is amazing. The Capilano Suspension Bridge is an iconic landmark in the city, and especially awesome to do that in the winter, of course, because of all the lights. It's a great place to visit in the winter because there's usually fewer tourists and visitors at this point, which is great. Less people, and you still get to enjoy that experience and explore at your own
How high
pace.
is it? What's the how
About
high is
100,
the bridge?
150 feet above the water.
For our viewers, the Capilano Suspension Bridge, easy for me to say, it's basically the bridge from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah, but a lot more stable.
More stable, yeah. One hopes.
Yeah, so I mean, you can get like a solo. You can take your own pace. You get pictures. The snow is not guaranteed in Vancouver any year, although on North Shore it's probably more prevalent at higher elevations than it would be in my condo downtown. Um, there's usually a few days, but if you're lucky enough, it's pure magic. The Capilano Suspension Bridge offers the Canyon Light Show in the winter, which makes a really special evening out for kids and family, girlfriend, whatever. And it lights up with Christmas lights. Now, of course, it's still ongoing. The price to visit this with the package that these folks are putting together is really reasonable. It's called the Capilano Suspension Bridge Package. It's 79 Canadian as of this year, and it includes a free shuttle from downtown as well as parking. And you can buy your tickets in a variety of different ways. And it's just something that I'd highly recommend. If there's just a couple, you spend $150. You can have a bite to eat beforehand. You can bring a lunch. You can get adjusted in any way that you feel that you might
You lose your
need
lunch.
to get adjusted for that experience. It's Vancouver, as everyone knows. There's a lot of freedom here. in many ways. And it's one of the things that gives people the option to do, what they'd like to do, whatever that might mean.
Yeah, I
And
remember my mom taking me to that when I was a kid with my Oma she was visiting from Germany, my father's mother, and it was a really exhilarating experience for a kid.
very much so. And they do, well, I won't tell you about others because it could be on your list, but that would be my first
Okay.
of many that I'm going to recommend. What
Okay.
would you go? Where would you go next, Johnny?
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about Robson Street when I
Yeah.
was a kid, because Robson Street downtown, which is one of Vancouver's main streets, used to be very German and very European. And my dad used to take my mom and I to a restaurant called the Schnitzel House every Saturday night without fail. And we always had the Wiener Schnitzel and the pan fried potatoes. Oh my God. I mean, when I found out that Wiener Schnitzel was baby cow, that kind of turned me off it a little bit. But boy, oh boy, with the lemon, just
They call it in the hospitality industry. They call it veal, but you're right.
yeah, absolutely scrumptious. And there were a lot of German restaurants on Robson Street back in the day. And I
Yeah.
remember there was one. Do you remember European News on Robson Street? It was a magazine store, and I would just lose my mind there because they had magazines. They had
I
magazines from all over the world.
Dude, I actually do because back in the day I used to like to buy the USA Today,
Oh
and
yeah,
it,
yeah,
it
same
was
here.
never sold in the Bob's grocery store in
Yeah,
Kitsilano, right? So I would, if I was downtown, I'd grab my copy of the
yeah,
USA Today because I didn't have a TV, I didn't have a computer, and I could catch up on all the American basketball action,
there
of
you
course.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, European News was amazing. So Robson
yeah.
Street is very different now. It's basically Starbucks in every other corner. But back when I was a kid, it was almost like a little Europe, almost like a little Europe within Vancouver.
And Johnny, tell us about Robson. Its location in the downtown core is the
Yeah.
epicenter, really, of the downtown core.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's downtown, and as I said, it's basically a lot of Starbucks and bookstores, and pretty much like every other and any other main
Restaurants.
street in the North
Yeah.
American city. Indigo Books is there. I spend a lot of time there. That's where I get my books, and I've even actually asked the owners if they were interested in maybe some of my books, and they so far they're not biting. Apparently, there are a
Just
lot of people doing what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, the more shows we get out, and the more you got to keep in contact with Jonathan, get him your stuff,
Yeah,
and get him some of your stuff, and we're gonna find you a literary. If anyone's out there and you're a struggling literary agent
you're looking for
and you'd like
content.
some fresh talent that is exciting, prolific, please
It's
get a hold of us. Make
I
a
like to think
comment.
I like to think my writing at the bare minimum is not boring. What I would
No,
like to do is maybe hook up with some grassroots film production company that's just
yeah,
getting off the ground, that's looking
yeah,
for content. That's the
okay,
bell that I want to ring. I want to hear
okay.
actors reading dialogue that came from my imagination.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Or maybe we could do like acting things and get and people just reading your stuff.
That would be terrific.
Yeah.
That's a good
Anyways,
idea.
so that's great. Robson Street is not when in the 40s and 50s. Robson Street was really mom and pop. It was small. Now it's the epicenter of the downtown financial district and takes you
Right.
into the west part of downtown Vancouver, which is the West End, Cole Harbor, the Beach District, and it's
Stanley Park.
Downtown Vancouver is a great city to walk. So one
It's a
of the
very
things,
compact city. That's one of the reasons why I never got my driver's license, because it's just so easy to get around in Vancouver.
yeah, and it's expensive to have a car, and driving in Vancouver is not fun at all, especially now. But that was a good one. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the obvious because I'm on the shore and the North Shore. We call it the shore. And the next one of mine is to enjoy the Wet Coast Winter Wonderland, and that is the three mountains that we
Mm,
have less than 40 minutes by sea bus, by two bridges. Gross Mountain is in the middle. And one of the things you can do at Grouse Mountain is you can take the gondola up to the top of Grouse Mountain. You can take it down,
Grouse Run.
and and during winter, if there's no snow, I don't know if anyways, it's a phenomenal place. They have a snowmaking machine. The views
Right.
on a clear day are extraordinary. You can see all the way to the American border. And the gondola is fun in itself because you think you're in a European winter wonderland. And you get up there if you don't want to ski, if you don't want to snowshoe, if you don't want to snowboard or tube or get lost in, deep snow because you're afraid of getting frozen and end up like the end of Shining with Jack Nicholson. You know what I mean? In the maze. I don't know where that came from, but it's the views are extraordinary, and there's 3 mountains:
Mm.
Cypress, Grouse Mountain, and
Mhm.
Seymour Mountain, all available to Vancouverites within less than an hour. It's extraordinary. Not many
Mm.
places like Vancouver can have that. We're landlocked. We're surrounded by ocean, we're surrounded by mountains, and we're surrounded by 60% of the population. Vancouver is the rest of the world that have discovered this
It's very
great
true.
city.
Yeah.
And the 40% are Canadian bros like us. Where we've been living here, we're very fortunate to be living in Vancouver and have
That's
this
actually on my list,
experience.
believe it or not. I used to ski when I was in my 20s. And you remember
Really?
Andreas Birkenbach?
Of
We used to
yeah,
hang out. We used to play tennis during the summer. He was a great
yeah.
tennis player. He always beat me. And he actually drove me a few times to Whistler and Grouse Mountain. And I actually did downhill ski, I want to say maybe 20 times. And then after like the 10th tree that I missed by that much, Get Smart style, I said, I'm just not this guy. I'm just not a daredevil.
John, you've never been that guy. In your
I'm an
mind
artsy,
and your
fartsy man.
character, Lee Hacklin is you. You are. But I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, know who you are and
yeah.
just be comfortable with that.
Know
And
thyself.
Andreas, by the way, he passed recently.
Oh no!
Sorry about that,
Oh, I
bro.
didn't know that. Oh,
Sorry about that. I was just over in the island
oh,
visiting
whoa, Paul.
Eddie
Oh,
Romagnoli and Wolf and Lawrence and Wolf and Andreas used to hang out. Andreas loved to drink beer. He actually
I
just
did
loved to
not know he
drink.
passed away. I'm a little sad now.
Sorry about that.
It's
He was a
okay.
prolific drinker
Mhm.
and loved the
Yeah,
ladies. And I liked him. I remember him in
yeah.
Kitsilano. Always liked him.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
yeah.
Was he still
So
in Vancouver?
that's I actually I can't remember because over the island with the boys. The air quality in the loft that Ed lives in is the secondhand smoke can really debilitate one's senses, if you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I didn't get that, but rest in peace, Andreas. You were a
Yeah,
cool cat.
that's very sad. He was a super nice guy.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
he probably still is wherever
Yeah.
he might be at this point. But
Rest in peace, Andreas.
yeah. So who's next? Are you next? I'm
You're up.
next.
You're up.
I'm
I
up.
guess skiing pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about all. It's not just skiing. You could
Okay.
snowmobile, you
Yeah.
could rent a helicopter, you could sit in a cabin and drink hot chocolate. You can snowshoe.
And
You can rent. I mean, there's a lot of things to do, but it's to be able to
drink.
have it an hour away, and at certain points of the year in a soft winter, you can actually get up early and play a round of golf in a
Mm.
late spring, and then go for lunch, happy hour, have a nap, go up to the local mountain, ski, and then take the gondola down and party at night. I mean,
There
not
you
many
go.
places you can do that on the Canadian dime, which
Yeah.
is generally speaking 30 cents less than most currencies. The
Ouch.
next one I would talk about is one that's kind of old school, but because all of our family grew up in like the West Side, all generations, we used to at Christmas time we used to wander the Van Dusen Gardens
All right.
on Oak and 33rd, just across from Eric Hamber. And the Van Dusen Gardens are absolutely beautiful. They're meticulously maintained year round, and they transform from the Four Seasons. And they do a fantastic job. And by the way, they've got a couple of good restaurants up there too. So, it's become kind of expensive, but there are tours you can do, which I'll explain shortly. And one of the colder months is one of the best things to do because it's not as busy. And during the winter months, the gardens transform into a magical festival of lights. All 10 acres, people don't realize the Van Dusen Gardens are 10 acres, it's pretty good size, are decorated with over 1 million lights. And they're themed light displays throughout the gardens with festival music and background. It's truly a magical experience and a great way to enjoy the holiday spirit. The price to enter the gardens by yourself solo is $24. And honestly, there's no time limit. You could stay there for 5 hours and sip a coffee
Mm-hmm.
and maybe have a bite to eat, and it's really good value, I think, and it's just captivating. It's just
That sounds like something that could be very therapeutic, right?
I think so.
Bit of
Yeah, good for
stress
the soul,
eating.
good for the mind,
Yeah,
good for the spirit.
there you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Okay. Well, since we're talked about skiing and golf, I guess I'll pick up with the sports theme.
Sure.
Something I used to do, but that I'm sure a lot of Vancouverites do all year round, especially the wintertime, is play racquetball. Like our mutual friend Keith Bickford and I used to play racquetball at.
We had Keith in our fourth or
He
fifth
did.
show.
He was our first guest, and
Yes.
Keith, of course, is a great athlete. He still plays hockey, and he beat me every time. And this is when I weighed 235
He's a
pounds. I
great
don't know.
tennis player and a great
Yes.
racquetball player and badminton.
Right. And racquetball is an incredible workout. You just sweat like crazy running around chasing after this rubber ball. We tried squash a couple of times and it didn't really work for me. Something else that I feel a lot of Vancouverites do during the winter, probably people all over the world, is practice martial arts. That's something I used to do when I was a young man. I actually took Shotokan karate for 1 year at the YMCA, made it all the way to orange belt, I'm very proud to say. And I actually did Muay Thai kickboxing for 2 years at the Falls Creek Community Center. It's called
Wow.
Wolfpack Kickboxing. It was
Wow.
mostly women. It was like maybe 10 women and me and two other guys. And whenever I sparred with a woman, I always felt like she had it in her mind. I don't mean to be sexist. I'm just sharing my experience. I always had in my mind's eye that she was visualizing her ex-boyfriend or her current husband or perhaps her father because holy moly, I would just come home from those classes like battered and bruised. But it helped me build up a lot of self confidence, I feel. And I still practice at home sometimes, and I make videos of myself sometimes. So
That's why I brought it up with you at work. Like, if you don't have a weapon, like, what are you going to do, right? What are you allowed to do? And with regards to some
social
stranger,
distance.
yeah, and with regards to some strange woman, trying to take out her frustrations on you, is not surprising at all. And God bless them,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of dodgy brothers out there that are treating them bad,
I
and
used to say every class, I used to say, hey, you see that guy? He's the instructor. Okay, he's been doing this his whole life. I'm a student just like you. I'm not your punching bag. Okay,
yeah,
take it easy.
exactly. And I would like I think about being there and watching you get beat up by some really attractive gal or unattractive. It doesn't really matter, but just watching her like slap you around, I think that'd be really fun.
It's always fun when it's somebody else, right? Did you ever do any martial arts?
A little bit, a little
Yeah.
keto.
Oh, nice.
Eddie and Dan, when I was visiting them, Powell River, they brought me out to, what's it called, the gaijing? No, dojo.
Dojo.
Yeah, and so I'd
Let's
have to
see.
wear the thing and do the stretching. I'm a basketball athlete. I was very limber, and I was a gymnast in my earlier years as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I played every sport except cricket and rugby. And I used to love it, but because I became enthralled with basketball
Mm,
and golf and everything else, I just didn't have the time to get into it. It's a very dedicated discipline,
mhm.
but I certainly appreciate it. And you, on one of our past episodes, we talked about our love of Bruce Lee and martial arts, and your love of specifically Chuck Norris. And that's when Johnny came out and talked about his love for all these macho guys, and especially Chuck Norris. I was like, Johnny, okay, that could be real, but that's okay.
I think martial arts should be taught in high school.
Yeah.
I think there'd be a lot less bullying if kids knew some basic self-defense moves because it
Well,
does
it is
build
in
up some
Japan. It
self-confidence.
is in Japan. It's a
Absolutely.
course, and
Really,
if doing
really.
that with all the bullies out there, you'd be able to kick some ass.
Yeah, we'd
So,
be able to defend yourself and others too.
well, maybe just because you can take a course doesn't mean you can't defend yourself. But I totally, you have more confidence to be able to,
Absolutely. It
you
affects
know,
your whole mindset.
yeah,
You
which
just
is
go
not a
through life
bad thing.
fearlessly.
So, like any other city in the world, this is not unusual. It could be any of the four seasons or two seasons in Vancouver. It's either raining or
Mostly.
occasionally sunny
Mostly.
in Vancouver.
Intermittent
Uh,
sun.
but in the meantime, it doesn't stop you from eating 365 days a year.
Of course, pun intended.
And one of the and one of the funnest things to do and I've done it because one of my friends, Carlito, does a food tour down in downtown Vancouver, and he likes to focus the food tour in Gastown.
Oh,
And you can go on a variety of food tours. And Gastown's about 2 blocks from me. I'm in Crosstown, which is a fairly new neighborhood. I'm in the middle of Gastown to the north, um, Chinatown, and Railtown to the northeast. Um, Strathcona and Mount Pleasant East to the southeast, Yaletown, downtown Financial to the southwest, and then to the northwest is Cole Harbor and the West End Beach District. So I'm literally in the epicenter of the downtown core where Johnny is at the Vancouver Library, and I'm here at my condo downtown. Um, we are surrounded by hundreds of restaurants. Well, it used to be thousands, but the hospitality industry, which we're going to do an episode very soon with a classy dude, is dissipating at such a accelerated level that a lot of restaurants, probably 7 out of 10, are going to be out of business by the end of this year.
I'm
It's
sorry
a
to hear that.
struggle. But in the meantime, if you only got a couple hours and you just don't know where to go, take one of these tours. It's a food tour, and it's a secret food tour. And so depending on what they say secret is, how many restaurants I can get. So you pay like here's someone that's commenting, I loved getting the chance to try a variety of dishes from a classic Canadian poutine to some great sushi. We have both, and even a secret dish. And I won't spill the beans about that. Well, there can be a lot of secrets. Everyone has secrets, even Johnny. And visit some hidden gems only locals know about. And the food tour is going through Gastown, which is the oldest and trendiest part of Vancouver. This guide will take you and provide lots of information about Vancouver's culture, hospitality, industry, history, and food. And all you need to do is bring an appetite. And the tour
Mm.
costs $135 Canadian, and a small group of just 12 people, and you can upgrade. It's a great way not to spend all your money in one place you might not enjoy, but hear a little bit about the history, the culture, the historical architecture, location. It's much more fun. You get to meet new people, have a couple of drinks, have some laughs. It's a great way to do it. I highly recommend anyone comes to Vancouver, book a food. If you need that, contact Johnny or I, make a comment on the Canadian brochure, all things Canadian. I can hook you up directly with somebody that does it professionally.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah, thank you.
Right on. Okay, well, you mentioned Gastown. Back in the day when I was in my early 20s, maybe until my late 20s, I did a lot of clubbing on the weekends. And some of the places I
Oh,
went
oh,
to
you
were,
too?
oh, yeah, the Lamplighter Inn, the Blarney Stone, Notorious. You had to wear a suit and tie for Notorious. And there was another one called Shenanigans on Demon Street back in the
Oh,
day.
oh yeah,
And
Shenanigans, the hardcore beer
yeah,
drinking alcoholic crowd.
yeah, I spent
Holy,
a lot of years there. I had a roommate
I'm
named
not saying you're a hardcore Canadian alcoholic, but I'm just saying the
just
vast
on the
majority
weekend.
of people in that bar were
Yeah.
just, it was like you were in Czechoslovakia.
A lot of dancing, a lot of flirting, a few hookups here and there. My favorite
Good for
club back,
you, Johnny.
oh yeah, even
Hookups.
with the psoriasis here and there. But my
Hey,
favorite club,
if they're drunk and it's dark, who
it helps,
cares?
as long as the sheets are white. And
Oh,
my,
jeez.
never mind, let's keep it family
Too
friendly.
much info, Bo. We're
Yeah,
trying to do a show here.
my favorite club, which we mentioned on another podcast, was Love Affair. And I
Yeah,
used to go to Love Affair every Tuesday night. And the last song they always played was "She Sells Sanctuary" by the Cult, which is one of my
yeah.
all-time favorite songs. And remember the smoke,
Great
just
album.
probably
Great
can't
album.
the asbestos smoke that fell
Oh
from the
yeah.
ceiling. And I
I'm
mean,
surprised we're still alive.
yeah, me too. And then there was another club I went to called The World. Do you remember that place? It was
Yes.
near Pacific Avenue,
Yeah.
and you could go there after 2 o'clock. And I
Yeah.
remember this vividly,
Yeah.
even in my drunken stupor. And you
Right.
say to the bartender, "I'd like a special," and they
Yeah.
would serve you a drink after 2 a.m. I guess
Yeah.
eventually the police closed them down.
Well, no,
That place,
actually,
that place would stay open until like 5 in the morning, for real.
well, for a reason, it wasn't the food, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there was more than one. And while Johnny was dancing and partying at Love Affair, which I was probably there earlier, I'd go to Graceland and then the
Oh yeah, I've
Roxy.
been to Graceland. Used to go there too.
Yeah,
Sure, Roxy.
and
Yeah,
we did the same
Roxy's
things,
still
and
there. Yeah.
it is, and many stories there.
That's when I had hair. That's when I had beautiful Goldilocks.
Well, Johnny, when I first met Johnny in over 50 years ago, Johnny was the whitest blonde hair you've ever seen in your life.
Hair
And
today, gone tomorrow.
well, I mean, you get to experience all different types. Yeah, but you got a good dome.
Mm.
And at 175 pounds, at 6 foot or 5'11 and a half, or whatever you are, and yeah, you're ripped. is I can't believe the ladies aren't just throwing themselves at you. It's like, I think it's a toque. I think a lot of girls are intimidated by a toque,
Maybe.
and not
Could
many
be.
people can wear one like you do. The next thing I'm going to go to is a very touristy thing, because I still get a laugh of it. I walk by it every once in a while. It's only a few blocks from me. Excuse me. I just want to wet the whistle.
Mm.
Mm.
Hydrate.
Always. So the thing, Gastown, I live 2 blocks away. Gastown is one of the oldest and most interesting neighborhoods in Vancouver in the downtown core to explore. It's
Mm.
considered the historic heart, obviously, with the architecture, and most of the buildings are built in the late 1800s and 1900s. And the only ones that are standing are the only ones that survived the Great Fire of the late 1800s that wiped out the entire downtown. Everything was wooden except the cement buildings.
Mm.
Um, and it's considered, and the beautiful cobblestone streets,
Right, right.
the architecture from the earliest 20th century, 19th century, as a matter of fact, a lot of them, if they're still standing, a place of history, but also great place to eat, shop, and drink.
Mm-hmm.
They have this Gastown walking tour. Now, a lot of people think, oh, walking tour, I got to listen to some dork tell me about, like, whatever. Look, it is one of the best values you could possibly ever do. It's a great place to start exploring. If you're new to Vancouver, you're on the cruise ship, you only have a certain amount of time. And again, you don't want to go into some crap restaurant or crap bar and spend a ton of money and have a bad experience. And that's the last time you'll be in Vancouver. So these are options that we're trying to showcase for
Yeah,
you.
you don't want to go too far east because then you get into our ghetto.
Well, you
The dark place.
get into Railtown, and in Railtown, one of the biggest experiences in Railtown is you ever heard of going to Vegas and having a Vegas rail?
No.
Well, that's kind of what you get in Railtown, and except it's not Vegas and it's dodgy, and you'd be
Mm.
lucky if you survive the evening, because fentanyl is a huge problem. But anyways, the
Um,
Gastown walking tour is a great way to explore the neighborhood of Gastown, which is really amazing. It's theatrical and informative, and you can learn all about the origins of Vancouver and the juicy stories about what happened over 100 years ago. The tour is about an hour and a half, and it's $38. It's the best $38. You'd spend a cab going from the cruise ship to 5 blocks later, with some cab probably taking advantage of you accidentally, of course.
well, let's take the
And
scenic route.
yeah,
The
so the
long way.
Gastown walking tour, go to Gastown. You can have some fun. If you're staying a little bit longer, you can explore and bar hop and restaurant hop. It's great.
Mm.
Um, who do you got next, Johnny? What
Okay.
area do
Well,
you
this
want
is
to explore?
something that people can do during the winters and go to concerts. Now, I went to a lot of concerts and theatrical productions back in the day. Our mutual friend Brian Alk and I, we saw Queen in concert,
Nice.
Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons.
Wow.
We saw me and Carol, a friend, well, not a mutual friend, but an old friend of mine. We went to see Tears for Fears in concert, and I
Nice.
remember it was we were standing right up against the
Everybody
stage.
wants
It was actually not
to.
a fun experience because we were standing like almost right up against the stage, and I just
Cool.
remember like people pushing themselves against me. Truthfully, I couldn't wait to get out of there, and me and our mutual friend Jeff Manuke, remember Steve Heckman from Kiss?
Yes.
We
Yes.
actually saw, I can't believe, I don't think I've ever told you this. We actually saw Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, in person at UBC. He gave a
Oh,
speech about the future
oh,
and
just wait. Sorry.
had to get Star
It's
Trek in there.
it's Macau. It was a real. They just gave
Oh,
me odds I could not
very
turn
exotic
down.
location, Macau.
I've never been, and I'll never go because I can't afford to. But I thank you. I just,
Someday. Yeah.
I lo-
I mean, he was great. He just talked about how he was trying to sell Star Trek and the network wasn't buying and very down to earth. I wish I'd asked him for his autograph. And just keeping with the Star Trek theme a little bit more, our mutual friend Tom Giorgantis and I, we saw Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard himself, at a Star Trek convention in 1993. And that was an incredible experience. That was really the first time where I felt like I was at a church of nerds. It was just like there must have been 1,000 people there, and half of them were in the cosplay, were in the costumes, and there was one guy. He had a huge model of the Starship Enterprise affixed to his head. It was actually very dangerous to be near him. He could have decapitated somebody. But I just remember feeling, man, like I don't feel alone right now. I feel like I'm with all these people who love this geeky stuff just as much as I do. And it was not just a stereotypical, morbidly obese, smelly Star Trek. You just saw people from all walks of life there. And it was just such an upbeat experience. And I actually had a very brief conversation with one of the writers. I can't remember. His name is Eric Stillwell. He wrote one of the very, very best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation called Yesterday's Enterprise, and I actually chatted with him about how he came up with that idea. And so
Johnny, I'm on the precipice of nodding off.
Oh, that's a compliment.
No, it's just Johnny and Star Trek is if you've watched our shows,
Well,
we're talking about exploring the winter wet wonderland.
I think that was during the winter time.
Not being out in the space with Gene Roddenberry, drinking alien booze.
We actually, Jeff and I also saw Joan Rivers back in the day in concert.
She was a talented gal.
At the, I think it was at the Commodore Ballroom. And I used to watch a lot of stand-up comedy back in the day. I went to a
Johnny,
lot of
let's stay on topic, bro.
Yeah. This is a winter thing. I saw a Chorus Line live.
No, anyway, I know, but nobody cares about that. Let's talk about the things they do care about. If they're here for a period of time, we can do that. But I appreciate the stories because, I love the candor. Johnny is able to just, freestyle. That's why we don't edit in this show. We just, we feed off each other. We bounce off each other. Is it my opportunity to share the next one?
You're up to bat.
All right. So one of the most best places in my opinion in Vancouver when they finally got it together, because it used to be just this desolate place. There was nothing there. Nobody went there at night. And that's False Creek. And finally in the late 70s, they decided to clean it up and shut it down because it was polluted, filthy, dirty. Nobody wanted to go. And developers saw the opportunity to False Creek is part of the Burrard Inlet, and we're surrounded by water and mountains, but everything west of us is water, and it is a fake inlet, and that's hence being called False Creek. But
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting. Wow.
And back in the day, my old friend I grew up with at St. Augustine's named Mike Sweeney. I don't know if you remember Mike Sweeney from Kitsilano.
Nope.
Mike Sweeney and his family, they live right across the street from Kitsilano on 12th and Larch. Mm-hmm. And the Sweeney family had a house right there. And his dad had the Sweeney barrel cooperage. And they made barrels. And we had a table made of barrels that my mom bought in 1971. And it was literally 5 barrels and a table made of a barrel. Wow. And that was our dining room table. It was very uncomfortable, but it was kind of cool. And Sweeney Barrel Cooperage, all of the businesses, and they were all, industrial businesses, would dump their sludge into the False Creek, and it was really polluted. So the city decided to create Granville Island.
Yes.
And Granville Island is really, to this day, one of my favorite places to go.
It's absolutely beautiful. I live right by there.
When I'm living in Vancouver, I get on my bike and I'll do 18K every day. And I'll go down to Fisherman's Wharf and back. It's 9K each way. And 45, 50 minutes. That's how I get my workout to start the day. I'll get the equivalent of about 12, 13,000 steps. But in the meantime, Granville Island is it's attached to a seawall, which is over 30 kilometers. Which is another thing we can bring up. I might actually be on my list. I've got a lot on my list. Granville Island is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Vancouver. And I totally understand why. This is the source that I am sharing. And hence, that's why they're doing it. Have you noticed everyone has a tour and everything they mention? So there's probably a kickback, but that's fine. That's everybody's trying to make a business and make money, and I get it. But it's a great place to stop in Vancouver any time of the year. But winter is especially nice because it's less crowded with tourists and it makes it easier to explore. Not only is it less crowded, and if it's not raining, it's mild. You can bike. You can get on the ferries. They have ferries that take you all around. There's 12 different ferry stops, which is really fun. And where you can take ferries around the inlet. It's not as dirty as it used to be. And there's just so much to do. Before you go, Some of the highlights include visiting the market. There's an exterior outdoor market, and there's a wonderful indoor market if it is raining, which it almost always is in the wet coast. Winter wonderland that is
Not wrong.
Van City.
Yeah.
vancityurbanliving.ca is my website. Learn more. Hit me up. You want to buy a place? Let's go. I'll find you a condo, a house, a leasehold,
An
a
igloo,
loft, an igloo.
a bat cave. No.
Look, I've got people that sell igloos, so I'll try to get a commission. And the best thing before you go, because you go down there and you just walk down, park your car. There's breweries, there's restaurants, bars, art galleries, many shops, and tons of people. There's a marina, there's the ferries. It's just fantastic. Of course, the Granville Island Public Market is the main attraction. You want to buy fresh fish, fresh vegetables, fresh bread, fresh everything. They actually have a VIP market tour. Once again, you okay? You gonna pass out?
I feel a sneeze coming on. Go ahead. It's okay. I'm
Let her
trying to
rip.
follow.
Let her rip.
It's all good. It's all good. I don't
Um.
want to blow snot.
Anyways, the tour starts at 10:30 in the morning. Lasts 2 hours. Again, I'd recommend. It's basically like brunch and lunch combined. You get an expert local guide that can take you to like 20 of the best culinary delights for, I think, fluffy donuts, truffle salami, fine cheeses, chocolate, Thai food. My mouth is watering and it's dry, and that's why I am hydrating. That tour is $186 and it includes all of the food. So think about how much you're going to spend eating yourself in a place these days. And I'd highly give it a go. Vancouver Island, check it out. It's really exciting. One of my favorite places to go even today.
Terrific. Yeah, Granville Island is really beautiful, and you see a
Yeah.
lot of tourists there.
Yeah.
You see a lot of craning necks. That's when you're looking at a tourist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, I have one more on my list.
Okay.
My mom, no matter how horrible the weather was, God bless her soul, she's no longer with us. She used to take me to the very first quasi comic book store called Collector's Books and Comics on Dunbar and 16th. And I remember going there with my mom on the bus when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. No matter how cold it was outside, she always took me there on the weekends, and she'd buy me comic books. She bought me Silver Surfer #1. She bought me Daredevil #1. And I
Ooh,
remember walking.
I have Silver Surfer #1 as well.
Oh, well, that's probably
Yeah.
worth a few bucks. And I remember walking into that store, and we talked about this on another podcast. And I was always hit with the smell of old paper, and I felt like I was stepping out of a time machine. I just loved that smell, and I loved being there. It was my favorite place in the whole wide world. And then a few years later, the comic shop opened on Fourth and Alma, and then eventually they moved to Fourth and Arbutus, where our friend Keith Bickford worked back in the day. And I spent a lot of time at the comic shop, just hanging out, chatting with Keith about comics. And these times,
Almost every day for me as well.
after school, I'd pick up my comics, and they had a Spider-Man pinball machine that I was absolutely addicted to. And going to arcades is another thing I used to do back in the day. Me and Kennedy, we would go to UBC, and we would spend the whole day at the arcade. Remember Star Wars with the vector graphics, sitting down and blasting away the TIE fighters? And,
Absolutely.
and he was
And a
so
shout out to Kennedy Ferrier. I hope you're well, bro.
He is. He's married, and I think he has 2 or 3 kids. But
Well,
he was so good at Star Wars that actually crowds of kids would stand around watching him. That's how good he was. And he was also very good. You remember Dragon's Lair,
yeah,
which was like the first video game that actually looked like a cartoon, like a fluid cartoon.
it was
So
pretty
I'm
cool.
goodness gracious. I mean, I must have spent thousands of dollars and quarters back in the day. I was absolutely hooked on video games, and fortunately, that's a thing of the past. But yeah, our arcades were a fun place to hang
Oh,
out.
you still can. You can still find them. It's just they're harder to find because everyone. I game on my
I guess they're
laptop
all in museums now.
at night. Well, I mean that could be one of our next options.
Yeah.
But it brings back a lot of memories, Johnny. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Good times.
So the next one I'm going to go to is I like free things. Who doesn't? Where you don't have to pay. And of
Mhm.
course, we all have to pay, but sometimes paying less than more is a good option. And in downtown Vancouver, if you're staying at a hotel with your parents, or you're in the hotel or an Airbnb, you can walk to an outdoor ice skating rink on Robson Street and if you have your own skates, for free.
That's right. That's right.
And it's lit up like a Christmas tree. It's so fun,
It's like
and
2 minutes.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
quite literally. And I highly recommend. If you don't have skates, they're like $10 to rent skates,
Yeah.
and it's ice skating is a fun way to spend a winter afternoon in Vancouver, and a winter afternoon just for an hour or two. Kids love it until somebody falls and gets cut or lands on their face. That's not good. But and they have good music, and the way they've got it set up in Robson, it's subterranean, and they've got this. It's fabulous. Everyone
Mm.
loves it. If you got kids, if you're not a kid and you're 90 and that's what you used to do on ponds frozen in the place that you grew up in, it's still fabulous. Just
It's
make
good
sure
with
you're
that.
wearing a helmet because
Yeah,
it can
full
be
body.
it's not a huge rink, and
Okay.
it can be packed.
I tried skating a few times, and again, like skiing, it's just not something I was meant to. I'm basically like Frankenstein's monster, just hanging onto the rail for dear life. Not my thing.
For those that don't, Johnny is a tall, thin chap. His feet are like they're like snowshoes.
Flippers.
Right. So the
Big flip.
problem is when you're a skinny young dude and your feet are size 11, it's
11 wide.
you have to wear adult skates, and if
Mm.
they don't sharpen them properly, everyone's looking at them and say, "Oh my God, that kid's 4'11". He's wearing size 15 skates, and he's really struggling." And everybody will laugh and mock you, and it's not fun. But
Yeah.
um, I'm glad I don't have feet like you, bro. Because I was an athlete and a basketball player. I'd be
It's
in serious
I
trouble.
can only wear New Balance. The New Balance. If it wasn't for New Balance, I would have to wear specially made
Hoka
shoes.
or
Okay.
Hoka.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have one more on my list, and then I think I'm
sure.
done.
Okay.
Bowling. My mom and my dad
Before you
used.
start, Johnny, what is our time right now? Right now.
I'm looking at 59 minutes,
Okay.
56 minutes and 21 seconds.
All right. I got a couple more, but go ahead with yours.
Okay, I got one more, and then I think I'm done. I
Okay.
remember my mom and dad. We used to go bowling every Sunday at Chapman Lanes on West Broadway, 5-pin bowling. Those are
Awesome.
good times. And there's still a Commodore bowling lanes.
Love it.
I was walking along Granville Street yesterday, and it's like I walked by this a million times. I just noticed for the first time in ages that it was still open. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
it's such a relic from the past that's
It's a
still around.
beautiful room, man.
Yeah.
And you can drink beer.
I really enjoy bowling. It's something I haven't done for years
Yeah,
and years.
I
It's
love it
something
too. I love
maybe
it.
we should do that sometime. We can go bowling
Hey,
one night.
I'd love to if you want to do
Yeah,
that. That'd be fun, man.
I think it would be fun, especially with
Um,
the beer.
well, I mean, and Vancouver was quite pure. It's just, there was a time and when I didn't enjoy a beverage, where on Sundays you couldn't drink in Vancouver.
Mm.
That's just so ridiculous
Yeah,
in
I
the
remember when
'70s and
everything was closed on Sundays. It was very
'80s. It's
strict
like,
back in the day.
what do you want us to do? Go to church?
Basically, pray, pray,
Yeah.
pray for everything to be open.
Well, no, I mean, going to church is good. I did that. I grew up in that my life, and there's
Mm.
some positive things, and some people really enjoy it, and I still enjoy it. I just don't do it as
Yeah.
frequent as I did when I was younger. But one thing I did do when I was younger very frequently is go to a hockey game
Mm.
in Vancouver, the Vancouver Canucks and the Vancouver Giants. And my old friend and Ryan Cadman from
Mm.
Kitsilano,
Sure.
we grew up at Belfour Rentals. Ryan and I would go onto the Hastings bus. We'd sneak in the back because, our allowance was minuscule back in the '70s.
You rascals.
And yeah, and we'd sneak in after all the old people and the bums and the drunks fell out of the thing. We'd just slide in and duck in. We get a free ride to the Pacific Coliseum
Mm.
and to go watch the Vancouver Canucks. And of course, we didn't have any money. We didn't have tickets. We never paid for the bus. We wanted to sneak in or find a way to connive our way in. And the first thing we did is we'd go to the players' entrance, get there early, and see if they had any extra tickets. And the only guy that would give us tickets was Cesar Maniego, who was the Canucks goaltender at the time before Gary Smith came in and take over. Cesar, if he saw us, he even knew our names. He goes, Paul, Ryan. He goes, yeah, I don't have any tickets today. Sorry, bros. Whatever. And then we're like, oh, Cesar, it's okay. Next time. We'll see you next time. When he did, he always gave them to us. So then we would go around the exterior of the Pacific Coliseum, and it was all wooden doors. And when people exit, they could exit anywhere in the Coliseum for, if there was a fire that you have to get out. Well, these things are so old that they wouldn't close properly, and we would just, use a little leverage, finger,
I'm going to use
pen,
that for one of my books.
and I'm telling you, and we get in, sneak in, and at least 50% of the time we get to watch a free game. But
Wow. Did you ever
50%
get
of the time,
busted?
well, of course, 50% of the
You did?
time.
Okay.
And they knew us after a while because we did it all the time. We did it for years. But the Canucks, they did win an NHL championship in 1925. They were called the Vancouver Millionaires, and they have not. They got close for a couple of years. They have not got close. I gave up on the Canucks a long time ago. One of the most inept sports franchises for whatever reason I've ever experienced. And but I live a block away from them, and I've been to many games. I just wait for people to give me free tickets because I'm not going to spend the prices that they charge. But if you want to experience 20,000 people and watch the Canucks live, they're playing better right now in this season, the last season, and it's an exciting, brutal, fast-paced game. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And drink before, drink after, do whatever you want, drink during. It is a blast, and it's still extremely popular. As hockey might be Canada's most popular sport with Vancouver. Hockey's looking over the shoulder. Basketball is fast approaching as the fastest global sport in the world, and it's taking over in Canada as well.
I've been to exactly one hockey game in my entire life. I'm not a sports guy, but I liked the energy. It's like the one basketball game that I went to. I actually went to one Vancouver Grizzlies game back in the day. And
Yeah.
I didn't care which team won, but I admired the athletes and the amazing things that they could do with their bodies. And I
Yeah.
just liked the vibe and the positivity and the cheering. What I didn't like to see, and I saw this, I remember this during the Grizzlies game, is people getting up and leaving before the game ended because the Grizzlies were losing. I seriously, I couldn't believe how many people were doing that. I'm like, what are you doing? You paid to be here. Stay till the very end. Like,
Yeah, well,
what are you doing? They might make a
Johnny,
comeback.
Johnny,
Comebacks
the
happen.
yeah, I totally agree. But
That broke my heart.
the majority of these people are living out in the Fraser Valley and have to drive in the old highway,
Right.
hour and a half, 2 hours, and their kids are crying, they're falling asleep, they've worked all day, they're exhausted, and there's a lot of reasons for that happening. But good
I
point.
just felt bad for the players.
I
They were
don't,
paying
because
for
they were being
that.
well compensated,
Yeah.
and they lived a life of luxury. I was a professional athlete. I didn't work for 8 years. I had everything paid for. And
Wow.
I was just like a short white guy from, a college that everybody thought was San Francisco University, which in fact was Simon Fraser University. I'd say Simon Fraser, and they go, "Where?" It's like, dude, I'm here. Just sign me because I'm good. Anyways, the
Okay.
next one I'm going to do, we're going to wrap it up. I'm just going to go with one more because I think we might have to do part two in this.
Mm.
There's so many things,
I think
quality things
I'm done.
that we can do. The last thing, going back to the mountains, is we have three mountains: Cypress, Grouse Mountain, and Seymour. The most important mountain is Whistler.
Mm.
If you have the bank, the cake, the financial, you've got money, and you want to go spend a weekend and enjoy one of the best mountain experiences in the world, head to Whistler. Whistler, if it's a road trip. Who doesn't like a good road trip? I just came from the island. I went on a road trip. It was the best 2 days I've had in a long time. Um, it's Whistler's approximately a 2-hour drive from Vancouver on the famous Sea to Sky Highway. I don't know why it's famous, but that's how they
Or
market.
infamous for the multiple accidents.
Well, I was just going to say that, but I didn't want to
Yeah.
get it
Treacherous
negative.
highway.
And it's an amazing place to explore the winter. It's one of the best resorts in the world.
Mm.
And aside from skiing and snowboarding, there's so much more that you can do. Whistler Village is super fun to explore. A lot of great shops, restaurants, bars, activity. It's beautiful winter wonderland. There's a lot more
The village.
snow, and the village is great.
Yeah.
There's a ton of outdoor activities galore, luxurious hotels, spas, of course. That's why you need the cake. If you're lucky enough to be visiting Whistler in December, you can check out a range of festivals that they do and the Christmas holidays. If you miss that, which I would advise, do it in January or February. The prices drop a little bit and you don't have the tourists. You can snowmobile, you can snowshoe, you can do all the winter wonderland, wet coast, winter, west coast, wet coast, winter wonderland experience. There's guides. You just need a lot of money. And if you
That's
don't want
true.
to spend a lot of money, just go to the local 3 mountains. Cypress, you can go snowshoe for free, and parking's free
Oh,
if you know
really?
what you're doing. So, but I just wanted to finish that was just our synopsis of about an hour of some of the things that you can do. There are triple. I mean, we could talk about so many more, but we just wanted to showcase with you. If you're thinking about coming to Vancouver from Europe, any place in the world, you've never been here, and you get a chance to watch this show, and if you don't, because we will blow up at some point, we're gonna
Mm.
go viral. We've got 30 subscriptions in 6 months. That may not sound like a lot, and it's not,
Better
but
than 20 million.
we're growing. We only have 470 more. So
My
please,
my YouTube channel, not saying this to brag, 30,000 views and growing.
what?
Isn't that crazy? I know. It's
How many
unbelievable.
years have you been running that for?
Not that it's only been a few months, bro.
30,000?
Yeah.
Which
I
one
don't
is
know how
that?
many.
Is that the writing one
It's a
on
YouTube channel
Facebook?
where I work out. I post videos of myself working out and reading my stories.
30,000.
Isn't that
Oh,
nuts?
well, it's
Yeah.
because Johnny's naked half of the time. So I guess people, male and females, like that. I don't know. Kids find it right. Like, why is this guy working out
I
naked?
always
And
click not for kids.
yeah, me too. But anyways, Johnny, thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. We're gonna finish this up right now. Thank
Have
you
a
for
book.
joining us. If you have any questions about Vancouver or Kelowna, whether it's real estate related, you come here, you fall in love, you want to buy a place, give me a call.
Mm.
Paul Bale, vancityurbanliving.ca, Orca Realty. It's what I do. It's one of the things I do. This is just a hobby and a passion. And John and I have been friends for over 50 years. We really enjoy every week. We look forward to this. The idea.
Here's the
Um,
next movie.
my wife kindly is going to devise the logo that's above Johnny's head right now is the first iteration.
Thank you,
The
Father.
second iteration, all things basketball from Hoop Junkies, Pauly and Rolly. I did an episode yesterday solo because Trent had a big surgery to have his gallbladder removed. He's healthy. He's heading home right now. I talked to him today. Thank you, Johnny, for your prayers for both Mike Bushinsky and Jonathan and their situation, and anybody else that's going through it. Be kind, loving, and generous.
Mm.
Forgive and take the high road if you can't. Just be kind. It's free. And Johnny and I, on behalf of us, welcome to 2025 and a happy new year to
Happy New Year.
everybody. Peace, love, and happiness. We thank you for joining this program. If you just fell into it and you really enjoy it, please subscribe, like, share, and if you do, we really appreciate it. It helps the algorithms and it helps grow our show. And we're very passionate about what we do, obviously. And we're unlike anything else in YouTube in that we when our show starts, we go.
Mm.
We go for an hour, and it's uninterrupted. It's
Free form.
entertaining. It's silly at times. There's a lot of information, entertainment, and we really enjoy this opportunity. Thank you again. And
Thank
Johnny,
you.
I will. I'm heading back to Kelowna, but I'll see you next Sunday,
Okay.
and hopefully we're going to have one of my old friends, Mr. Richard Goodine, with the Goodine Group, probably one of the best restaurateurs I've ever worked for and with in my entire life. One of my past lives was 28 years in the hospitality industry, and he is an electrifying personality. Charismatic, intelligent, and I'll let him share that all with you because it will just fall right out of him. In the meantime, Johnny, thank you again. It was nice seeing you. We were supposed to go out for my, I'm turning 60 in like, I don't know, like a week. Hard to believe. But Johnny was going to take me out and we were going to get, you know,
Also.
we were going to get like, we're going to celebrate my 60th because it's
Well, it's
only
on the
once.
front burner.
And we're going to. I just had enough this Christmas, and I've got a big travel. I've got to go to the Coquihalla. I want to get home to my home away from home, and I have a referee this weekend. I'm a referee in Kelowna. I love it. It's basketball related. Everyone knows I'm a hoop junkie. But in the meantime, thank you kindly for staying with us. And I think we're going to have to do the Wet Coast Canadian Winter Wonderland Part 2.
Well, we could do the summer version of that.
Well, we could do part 2 next winter, but in the meantime, thanks again for Johnny. Would you like to talk about, do you have a pun, Johnny?
Well, I have a book and a pun.
Well, I
Actually,
got a
before the
book.
podcast,
Johnny's got a pun.
okay, I read this. I got this at the library today. It's called Superman 78, The Metal Curtain. The writer is Robert Venditti, and the artist is Gavin Goodry. This graphic novel is set in the Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner Superman movie verse. So
Right.
Superman is drawn like Christopher Reeve, and Lois Lane looks like Margot Kidder. And the
Yeah.
dialogue, as I was reading this today, is just very crisp and very witty, and very much like that original movie, which is my all-time favorite movie. And what's your book?
My book is my old coach, Stan Stewartson. I think I might have pulled this in one of my past episodes. Stan Stewartson was a dynamic coach and a real estate investor that one of my mentors in real estate, and also recruited me to play basketball under scholarship at Simon Fraser University, which I briefly mentioned, under the assistant coach who was my mentor, my real true mentor, Jay Triano, who I believe is still the associate head coach of the Sacramento Kings. He's been in the NBA. And this book is called, this is before Stan passed, is called Lucky Me. And I don't know how lucky he was, but he certainly felt he was. And I think in the past episode, I mentioned that Stan actually brought me up, and a kind of hilarious thing that happened. But I was thinking about Stan and Jay and Simon Fraser University, and because I'm a hoop junkie, I had to read it again, and it's really interesting how Stan evolved and got in sports and real estate, two synonymous things that I'm very much a part about. And it kind of just, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, wow, I've been in real estate 21 years. I think I need to stay in it for another, 5, 10, and see how it goes. Don't give it up. Keep on grinding. And I'm going to do that. So, and you have a pun, Johnny.
I do. Okay, here we go. No matter how far you push the envelope, it remains stationary. Thank you. You're very generous.
I like that. It's great. But anyways, Johnny, you're wonderful and fabulous. I will see you in hopefully about 8 weeks, and we're gonna go out and we're gonna go showcase our Canadian Bro Show once a year activity at the Cabo,
Awesome.
and have a blast. In the meantime, thank everybody for joining us. We really appreciate your time. This show is going to be up tonight in about an hour, and in the meantime, be kind out there, everyone. Happy New Year 2025. Let's hope it's better than 2024, 23, 22, 21, and 20.
Let's make it that way.
Yeah, well, we can manifest that. We all need to come together and learn to love, forgive, find peace. And in the meantime, look forward to next week's episode, Johnny. Take care, and thank you for joining us all.
Thank you.
Peace, love, and happiness. Take care. Bye.